Hey guys, so this is going to be the rest of the Alice updates, what I actually have pre-translated. The other one was just unexpected, and I wanted to get it out of there as soon as possible, especially with Mobizen having aired, so here we go. Now we're going to keep visiting him for a little bit, just to try to build up some hearts. So she's like, no reply right here. It repeats, this is Joker, her saying his name. And then it's like, do you want to have a conversation, change the season, or go back? We're going to have a conversation with him this time.
季節は堪能できている。楽しむためにあるものなんだから満喫しなくちゃ。
In my playthrough, he was saying, oh, Alice, are you tired of playing? Okay, well, I'll show you a performance that'll cheer you up. I'll give you a hand.
今の季節ならもみじ狩りなんていいかもね。鮮やかな赤は見すぎると目がチカチカするけどね。
And then in my playthrough, the mask popped in actually, and he was like, I'm gonna kick this tired guy away. I'm sure you'll get tired of them too. He's talking about the performance Joker. And then it fades out for me. That was not what he was saying there, but that's what I got. And then we're gonna choose it again. And it just repeats Joker, his name. And it's like, do you want to have a conversation, change the season, or go back? We're going to have a conversation again.
おや？遊び疲れたのかな？よし、俺が元気になれるような芸を見せてあげよう。
So in my playthrough I got, oh, well, you've also a concern, Alice? I'll consult with you if you do.
アホ！疲れているやつをはしゃがせてどうするんだよ。余計疲れるに決まってるだろうが。
And then in my playthrough, the Joker was actually speaking. He's like, this is not a place to worry about things. It's best of all if I don't see your troubled face. And then he's like, I don't know what to do with myself otherwise. And then it fades out. So now we're going to go visit Nightmare. And this should actually, like, trigger a question for us, which leads to, like, an event. So let's hope this happens. Alrighty. Oh, and I do want to see how many hearts we have. Let's see. Yay, we still have our heart. Okay, cool. Go back. Alrighty. No, I can't.
すまん。風邪気味なんだ。
In my playthrough, he's like, I don't like it. I'm doing nothing but sitting in this room, and I've been doing nothing but work, so I've been sick and tired of it.
風で吐血するなんて聞いたことがない。聞いたことがなくても、私はいつもこうなんだ。
And then in my playthrough, he was repeating what we would have told him. He's like, you don't do much work, do you? And then he, like, questioned her, and then he's like, oh, that's not true. There's nothing true about it. And he's like, I'm working properly. I do work properly. But that's not what we got here. So we're going to keep visiting him until we trigger this event. Give me my event, Nightmare. Yay! I think this is it. Yes, it is. Sweet. So we didn't have to answer a question for him this time. Okay, so like the rest of mine one for like triggering the event was actually a question. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I got there because we skipped right by that. And he's like, anyway, I want to go out for a change. I want to go out, he complained to us. And he's like, well, Alice, why don't we just get out of here? And then the question for the event was an autumn change one. And he's like, are we all right? Or why don't you try harder? Or when I'm done with my work, you could have answered him back. And then I chose the top for wanting to go out. And he's like, it's not a problem if we go there in the warmer season. And he's like, there must be some event going on. Or maybe it's just a refreshing thing to see. I suppose so. And he's like, you shut yourself up in here too. So it would be boring just to go alone, and we should go out together, and then it fades out. And then I chose Nightmare and got the event, which we got just now. So she's talking about looking at a glass case that looks like a jewel case right here. And she's like, delicious looking cakes and the other showcases are on display in the store.
あっちもいいな。ああ、これもいいな。
Nightmare's like, well, that's nice. Oh, that's nice too. And he's talking about all of the sweets. This is our first CG, because there's like 4 of them in here. And she's like to herself, everything looks delicious, and trails off all happy.
どれがいいか。いざ目の前にすると選べないな。
Nightmare's like, oh, well, which one would be better? Oh, when it's in front of my eyes, I can't choose. And Alice to him is like, well, to herself, it's a light-colored toy like candy, what he's looking at. Any woman's face would tear up, heart fluttering from the sweet temptations around them. She's like, as is often the case in these stores, there are overwhelmingly more female customers. Nightmare, the only man, seems to be in the best mood among them.
チョコレートタルトだろう、チーズケーキだろう、チェリーパイにホワイトフロマージュ。
He's like chocolate tart, cheesecake, cherry pie, white fromage. He's like talking to himself about all of the choices.
ここは王道のショートケーキか。いや、抹茶ムースも捨てがたいな。
He's like, no, it's a short step off to get to the Royal Road. Or no, matcha mousse. It's hard to throw away. And matcha mousse would be like green tea mousse. She, after a pause, says, you know, and trailed off. And then she asked him, like, didn't you come here to buy a Mont Blanc? Which is in reference to an earlier event that we had, where he's complaining about Gray having either thrown it out or given it away, like his cake that he got during the, like, autumn season that was a limited edition. So that's why they left to go here. And she's like, weren't you here for that? And she's like, Nightmare is in full swing. Like, his enthusiasm and, like, yeah, his investment in them.
ああ、そこの君、おすすめはどれかな。
And she thinks he's talking to her. He's like, oh, there you are. Which one would you recommend? Question mark.
アップルパイ。あ、いや、ガトーショコラか。この店で一押しのものは、あ、いや、5番目くらいまで知りたいな。
He's like, apple pie, no, gateau chocolate. And then, what is the best thing in the shop, he asks, trailing off. No, I want to know up to the 5th best thing.
そうですね。今のおすすめは
But a clerk cuts in, and this is who he's actually talking to. She's like, well, right now. And then trailed off.
ふむふむ。
He's like, She's like Moo to be able to, like, just stand there and, like, do this to her. Like, talk to this other female. From the beginning, Nightmare didn't ask me that question, but talked to the clerk, she figured out. And then she thinks to herself after a pause, to the female clerk. She's all upset. It seems that Nightmare wasn't particularly self-conscious of talking to women, not only to customers here, but also to the many shop assistants at these stores. And she's like in a jealousy event right now. The clerk spoke to him smilingly at Nightmare and started giving advice. She is kind, as there are no unfriendly staff here. Somehow, she tells herself, after a pause, I'm feeling afraid. She's like, I wonder what my boss is talking to the female clerk about. It shouldn't be a particularly interesting scene to me, she concludes. Nightmare and I are just bosses and subordinates, nothing else. She's trying to wave off her feelings. And then after a pause, she concludes to herself, oh, but I don't think I've seen Nightmare talking to anyone other than the tower men. And they're all men in the tower that work there. She's like, Gray goes around wandering in the town. However, Nightmare mainly works inside the tower and thus does not have many opportunities to talk to strangers outside. And she's like, so? To herself, like, why do I feel this way? And she's like, think restrained so that way he doesn't read your thoughts. And she's telling herself to, like, do this so he doesn't catch on. And she's like, that's why you're so perplexed? Is it because it's not often that this happens?
どうしたんだ
Nightmare catches on a little bit, and the scene changes a bit. Like, you can see his CG. She's like, nothing especially to him. Because he's like, what? What's wrong, Alice? And she's like, nothing especially.
だがそんなに気難しそうな顔をしてあ、わかった私が君の欲しいケーキを選ばなかったからか
So he asked her here, but you look so uneasy, and trailed off. And then he's like, oh, I know, okay. Is it because I didn't choose the cake you want? Like, completely oblivious over here, Nightmare.
どれが欲しい君の好きなものはどんな
He's like, which one do you want? And then he's like, what do you like? What? And trails off. She tells him, you look like you're having a lot of fun. You always keep yourself indoors. We both are withdrawn. I wonder if it's that, like, if that's your normal reaction to people. Because it is something that rarely happened. She's, like, wondering why this is bothering her. But it's funny that I'm feeling hurt because it's not an occurrence that takes place too often. And then she concludes, I am jealous of the fact that he voluntarily wanted to go out and was jealous of him talking with girls. Like, voluntarily wanted to go out to here. And then was also jealous of him talking with the girls here. He doesn't catch all of this. He explains why in a little bit. She's like, that's right. Oh, why do you think this way? And she's talking about herself here. Like, why do I think this way? And she concludes to herself that Nightmare is out and socializing. That's a good thing. Much more than his usual withdrawal all of the time. And yet, I'm going to argue with myself about it. If I can't tell you, I don't think it's a good thing. Like, she can't tell him about this, so she doesn't feel good about it. And he's like, Alice? Because he can't hear her. Right here, that's her name. Like, they don't say it.
どうかしたのか何かあったなら言ってくれ街中は人が多くてなかなか君の心の声が
And he's like, what's wrong with you? Tell Nightmare, like, tell me. And then if anything happens, tell me. There are many people in the city, and your voice, it's too quiet a voice, the one of your heart. And he's like, I can't hear it over everyone else. My 2D lovely boyfriend, Nightmare, oh. And he, like, freaks out a little bit. And he had ran over to her. That's why the CG changed. The clerk's like, Kaya! Because he ran into her. And Nightmare, who ran away from the showcase and came to my side, bumped into a female customer. Sorry, it was the customer, not the clerk. And she's like, although not so vigorous, there is no such momentum in it. The woman suddenly stamps around on their feet, like losing their balance. Or woman. And he's like, oops. Alice is like, Nightmare supported the staggering rival of, like, her heart with a shinobi grace.
これは失礼お嬢さん
And she actually called them an opponent in the translation, but I translated it to, like, rival of the heart, because that's, like, basically what this person is in her mind right now. He tells the lady, like, that was rude, and I beg your pardon, miss.
いえ、私の方こそ。
She waves it off because she's one of the faceless, and they're always deferential towards the role holder. She's like, no, I'm the one who, even though it was Nightmare who bumped into her. Unexpectedly, it is a genius-like gentleman behavior that emerges from Nightmare. Alice concludes that though he does not touch excessively the woman, whose shoulders are supported, she reacted by slightly dyeing her cheeks from it. The woman to Nightmare. And then Alice to herself is like, Miss what? It's like he's acting as a lord of the territory of this place of fall. And she's all upset. She's like, where did this behavior come from? Because it's not normally this graceful. She's like, I'm pretending to find myself to be disgusted, but there's a certain elegance there in how he's acting. And she doesn't have a reply for herself right here. Like, she's just upset. And then she finally tells herself, I'm feeling disagreeable about it. Like, that's actually literally the character for disagreeable when I translated it. And she's like, I don't like it. She's like, I don't feel comfortable. I don't like it. I'm left with a burning heart. There was no way out of this anger inside. I feel sad and frustrated that Nightmare's hands are touching a strange woman. She's like, why is this? And trailed off.
ありがとうございます。
The customer is like, thank you very much. Or the clerk.
いや、私も不注意だった。
I think it translated weird. He tells her, no, I was careless. I'm sorry. But I believe it is the customer because Alice watches her walk away later. And she's like, you can actually honestly apologize like that. And she's talking about Nightmare because he never apologizes for anything, honestly. Like, he has, like, almost zero sincerity. She's like, he's acting different from the one that I usually see, like, the usual face. And I can't think of him treating a woman like a gentleman because of his childlike twist to, like, his personality. He is not acting here as usual, and unlike the normal Nightmare, which I know, he's wearing a strange face now, she concludes. And even as I look off and at the back of the woman who leaves the store, the angry mist inside remains, she concludes to herself.
転んでしまわなくてよかった。
Nightmare's completely oblivious. He's like, oh, I'm glad they didn't fall down. And Alice is like, you don't decide things quickly to him, like cutting into him with a snappish comment. She's like, you're always wandering around in front of that showcase. And in order to conceal the turmoil inside of me, I return a snappish set of words in a cold voice as Nightmare leaned towards me with a strange look. He's like, Alice? And she's like, what do you have to get so lost about? I mean, even if you have decided on the Mont Blanc's plan, right? And this again is in reference to that earlier scene where he tore into, like, gray for getting rid of his Mont Blanc, his limited edition one from here. She's like, I don't want to be pursued on this feeling, and I consciously soften my tone. With a bitter smile, Nightmare smiled relievedly at me.
せっかく他の季節まで来たんだから、他のものも買いたいだろう。君の好きなケーキとか。
Nightmare's like, I've come all the way to the other seasons, and I would like to buy other things. Like your favorite cake, for example, he answered her after a pause. And she's like, he uses a gentle voice. It's not about him being particularly concerned. It's just that that's his nature. She's like, it's so natural. It's not a strange look that he's wearing now. And the difference is easy to understand just after seeing the interaction that he had with that other woman. She's not happy about it. She's like, forgive me, and see that I'm disappointed at the same time. She's like, be unconscious of it, please. To herself. She's saying all this.
何をだ?
But he catches on a little bit. He's like, what is it? Like, what's wrong? She's like, after a pause? No, nothing at all. Nothing to see here. Nightmare doesn't know what's up.
遠慮するな。君の好きなケーキを。
The super oblivious man. He's like, don't hesitate. Have your favorite cake. She's like that kind of a thing. Trailing off to him.
そんなことなんかじゃない。重要なことだ。
He thinks she's waving it off as unimportant. He's like, it's not like that. That is, I mean, it's important to me. She's like, what's of so much importance?
食べたいケーキを教えてくれ。
But he wants to know. He's like, please tell me the cake that you want to eat. Like, what's your favorite? Alice doesn't have a reply. But then she's like, don't you like Mont Blanc? That's what he was whining about earlier. And then she's like, Mont Blanc is what he wanted to eat. I don't like it the most, but now I have a visceral desire to eat it. Like, she just wants it super badly now. She's like, a bittersweet, sweet cake. Like, it fits her mood. And she tells herself I was worried about it, like all of this. Like, her feelings and everything.
当然だろ。他でもない。君のことだ。
He's like, of course, like, he's gonna get that. But he's like, nothing else, though, for you? She's like, I can express the words that I think of and are in my heart, but I don't feel angry enough to do so now. And it's because of someone's lack of awareness. She's talking about Nightmare being oblivious. That's the distance between us, and my heart warms back up, like, in a bad way. And it's slightly bitter, and I have to dress it up, like, pretend like it's alright. So she goes from this anxious expression to this. She's like, okay, let's buy it and go home, and pretends to be all happy. Nightmare doesn't buy it. He's like, quiet. Still giving her a look. She's like, question mark? And he suddenly remembers now. That, and trailed off. She's like, question mark? Like, what's going on here? She actually asks him. She's like, what's going on? Have you decided which one to buy now yet?
決めたぞ。あとは買うだけだ。
But he's anxious. He's like, oh, I've decided. All I have to do is buy it. She's like, what? Did you forget your wallet? While he's standing still, I wonder a Nightmare who does not move.
いや、忘れたというか。
He tells her no. I mean, I didn't forget. And trailed off again. She's like, he told me this, confused, with his shoulders lowered.
持ってきていない。
And then he confesses, I just didn't bring it. She's like, have you really forgotten? Like, what do you mean? You didn't bring it?
いや、そうではなくて、元から持ち歩かないんだ、財布は。
This idiot. He's like, no, not so much forgot. From the beginning, I didn't carry it with me, my wallet. She's like, all big lettered here, like yelling it. Before you say you didn't forget, don't you have one? A wallet? She asked him. I asked back with the feeling that it was a no-no, like you don't do this. And she's like, it seems now that he did not even think to bring it.
いつもはグレイか他の部下が持ってくるから。
He tells her it's usually carried by Gray or another subordinate for me, and trailed off. She's like, what? And then she asks him, how much is it in the box? Like, you have so much in there. You are a fool, she told him. And it's not an excuse, she tells herself. He has a coughing fit from the state of feeling. I feel weak suddenly from this, exhausted from, like, dealing with him. If you say so. And she's like, it seems like, and trailed off. I'm dumbfounded, but my cheeks are loosened at least. It's like being in a daymare. It's not easy with him, this nightmare-like dignity that he carries. Like, just dealing with him is like being in a nightmare during the day. She's just, like, exasperated. And he is now the one I know very well, so she actually feels a bit relieved while she feels, like, exasperated, because he's no longer, like, that strange person that she saw dealing with the other woman. She's like, whatever the reason, he doesn't care about these things and is still a child. Like, paying for stuff. She has no reply to this after a second. And then she's like, I don't want to keep the season as autumn, in quotations. Like, that parenthesis thing is autumn. She doesn't want to keep it as autumn. And the event fades out. And then we're going to choose to visit Nightmare one more time, because that will keep us, like, in check with him.
出かけるのか？最近しょっちゅう外出しているようだが。
So, in my playthrough, he was like, what's wrong, Alice? And he's like, what? After a pause, you should consult with me.
やはりこの寒さから逃れるためなのか？
He tells her there's something unusual outside. It looks like it's going to snow. And then he asks her, like, isn't that unusual in my playthrough? And then it faded out. So I don't know if it's going to do that.
寒いのが嫌なら廊下にも暖房器具を設置させる。暖かいものも用意しておくからちゃんと帰ってくるんだぞ。
I don't know what he said there. Don't care. And then it faded out. So next, we're going to do another video for the Joker's event, the big event that I translated for him, and then after we get done with that one, that's when we'll go on ahead and like cut for the updates this week or possibly going into next week. Let's go on ahead and see if I can get this saved. Save spot there. I'm gonna try to end this here.